President Obama addressed a series of important issues facing the U.S., both at home and abroad. The president held a joint news conference with British Prime Minister David Cameron. Mr. Obama took questions on several topics, including the uproar over the IRS for targeting certain political groups and the continuing investigation into the consulate attack in Benghazi. So joining us to break it all down is Caroline Horn, CBS News Senior Producer for Politics. Thanks for joining us this morning, Caroline.
Thanks, Anne-Marie.
The president talked a lot about both issues. In fact, I think if David Cameron left at some point, I don't know how many people would notice. He must have been wondering why he showed up for the press conference. But let's start with Benghazi and his response to the Benghazi issue. Did you hear anything different today?
He was defiant. As you said, he was asked about two main issues, Benghazi and the IRS controversy. But on Benghazi, he really once again hit home that he believes that this is politically motivated by Republicans. And specifically on the issue of who edited the administration talking points and when in the aftermath of those attacks, the president said it was a sideshow. And he said there's no there there. And he was not going to give any ground on that issue.
So let's talk about the IRS controversy now that the IRS targeted conservative groups, particularly groups that would seem to be affiliated with the Tea Party. I mean, he seemed pretty critical in the press conference, but I know he's already being criticized for not being critical enough. What's your take on his response to that? This is a biggie.
Well, it was in contrast to what he said about Benghazi, where he was accusing the Republicans of using politics. On the IRS scandal, he immediately came out and said that if these allegations are true, that the IRS was inappropriately targeting conservative political groups, that was outrageous and that he wouldn't tolerate it. He said that he would order a full investigation and that people would be held responsible. Now, this is 3 days after the initial story broke. Some people are saying what took him so long, but he was clearly taking it very seriously that this was an issue that needed to be addressed.
So is this the sort of scandal that could have an effect on the White House?
Well, I think you're already seeing it have an effect on the White House. You mentioned he was having that press conference with the British Prime Minister David Cameron. They were there talking about Syria, and they've got major issues that the two countries need to discuss. And the press conference question was focused on these two scandals. But the Congress has promised new hearings on both the IRS controversy and on Benghazi. So I don't see this going away anytime soon.
Indeed. And, you know, the president really hoped to be dealing with different sort of issues during his second 4 years. He was sort of sidetracked during the first 4 years, having to deal with some partisan politics. What are the chances that he'll be able to put partisan politics aside and actually get down to some of the things he never got around to during the first 4 years?
You know, it's interesting. After that press conference yesterday, he went up to New York City for three Democratic Party fundraisers. And at one of them, he was talking about how being in the second term has made him start thinking about history and his legacy. And he also said that he was hoping, after he defeated Republicans in November, that would somehow break the partisan fever. Well, I think it's pretty clear that fever here is still burning up pretty high.
Indeed. Caroline Horn, CBS News Senior Producer for Politics. Thanks again.
Thanks, Anne-Marie.